Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, December 17th at 7:01 p.m. We're in regular session tonight. Our first item of business is establishing a quorum. All members of council are here tonight. Next item of business is disposition of the minutes for a regular session held on December 3rd and a special session held on December 10th, 2018. If I could have a motion for approval of these minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval of the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Minutes have been approved. We now have communications, and are there any council members who have communications tonight?
I do.
Yes, Councilmember Fall.
I got a Christmas card from Trump. Because when they came forward and they emailed the whole of council about infrastructure on one of the infrastructure weeks that they had a while ago, I asked to be unsubscribed. And then they called me up about why I wanted to be unsubscribed. So obviously, I'm not unsubscribed. Thank you very much. Okay. You are my witnesses.
All right. Thank you for that piece of news. Any other communications? We will say that tonight we're moving along on several pieces of legislation. Usually, we try and tie as many of these ordinances up as we can to complete them. Some of them will be carried over into the next year. Appropriations ordinances do need to be passed tonight, so we'll have a series where some will be suspended, some not. But we will not forget them, the ones that are carrying forward. Reports and communications from other elected officials. Law Director? No. Auditor?
No report.
Okay. Mayor?
No reports.
Okay. It's a quiet night here. All right. We now have an ordinance for third reading. This is 14318, an ordinance adopting a fringe benefits package for non-union personnel within the city of Athens and repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
I would like to recognize Member Butler.
Thank you. I didn't know if this is the appropriate time to make a motion to amend, or is this the appropriate time?
Yes.
This is it.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to amend the ordinance, specifically if council members want to flip to page 6 in overtime discussion. Looking at the section C regarding the captains, the fire captains overtime. So I'm proposing that we strike out the 2496 and replacing it with what they had been originally receiving, which is the 2080 hours a year overtime rate.
Okay, and this is in the fourth paragraph down, just for means of clarification.
Thank you.
So we have a
motion. Do we have a
motion.
second?
I will second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for amending this, and we can have discussion or debate about this or further explanation. And as I'm understanding the codes that you are using, that it goes from 2496 and you're proposing, 2080?
Correct, to 2080.
And so what that would be doing is increasing the overtime pay from 1.5 to 1.7?
For the captains, correct.
For the captains.
Which is the same overtime rate that the firefighters below them are making.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's trying to make that language consistent.
I have one question. For the year, how much would this be extra to the city in terms of
it was
wages?
approximately, according to some of the data I'm looking at, was approximately a $5,640 total overtime saving.
I see.
For the three. So relatively minuscule.
Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Councilmember McGee.
I was wondering whether the captains, being non-union, enjoy any other benefits which the union members do not enjoy, whether there's any kind of equalizing of anything in this package. I understand you're focusing only on vacation, overtime, work, but is there anything else that you know of?
That's a good question. If you could clarify, and we also can rely on others to help answer, but if you could repeat that, you're wondering what benefits what other benefits?
Maybe the city law director could answer it, since I believe she was involved in the negotiation of the contract itself. The question is basically, is there anything that offsets it? It's my understanding that with the new union benefit that the union members would receive more overtime compensation than the captains. And I just wondered, is there anything in the contract that would offset that for the captains?
Well, to Member Butler, though, I think you've had some discussions with the captains, is that right?
Correct.
And I think this is a benefit that the union gets.
Correct.
I believe that they want the same benefit that the union's getting as far as the overtime rate.
Correct. Which is the rate that all firefighters had received prior to the union contract negotiation 2 years ago.
And so, Councilmember McGee, your question is there something else in the non-union contract that for which the captains who are non-union might receive benefits that kind of then ameliorates or offsets the difference in the pay? But
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I don't know of any other benefit that the captains get who aren't in the union that the union gets.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? So we have a motion and a second for amending this ordinance, and it would be going to sections 2C, the overtime, fourth paragraph down. It would be amending it by striking the word 24, the code for this pay rate of $24.96, and amending it to code 2080.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the amendment as it stands. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, so the ordinance has been amended and read for the first time.
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 143.18.
Second.
The reason for the suspension is this ordinance being essentially a benefits package. I can't call it a contract because it's not, but this is for our non-union employees. We must get this in place before this council goes away for the new year. So.
Okay. So we have a motion and second to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Reisner.
All right. Thank you. Madam President, I make a motion that we adopt 143.18.
Second.
For all the reasons I've already given.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Are there any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember McGee.
I hate to ask this, but I know we adopted an income tax, and we've, as far as our budget for this year, the question is, with this additional $5,000, does this affect our budget in any way? And for what we've done this year with increasing salaries and giving raises and everything to the employees through both contracts, union and non-union contracts, I suppose the overall question is, does it still leave us in good fiscal shape?
Thank you, Auditor Hecht.
Member McGee, you were kind of looking at me when you asked that question.
I was.
So this is the first I've heard about this.
Okay.
And so I'll have to take Member Butler's word that it's going to cost about $5,000. In the big picture of our general fund, no, it's not a big deal. But in general, we really need to watch our general fund budget. Even with the tax increase we put in place, everyone else has gotten, council's already done this, has gotten a raise. There are a lot of people employed in the general fund, and it costs a lot of money for employees, and people don't realize there's a fair amount of money above and beyond their actual salary for pensions and taxes and Medicare and all that kind of stuff. And so, yes, we're going to have to take a good hard look at our general fund. As you know, for a $14 million fund, we only have $6,000 unappropriated this year. And with everyone getting raises, whether it's from the non-union employees or the police and fire contracts and the code contract, which are all under the general fund, it's going to be tight.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the question. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember Butler.
I just want to acknowledge that I appreciate the challenges and time that goes into working on the contracts, whether they're union or non-union. The devil's in the details, obviously, and it's never quite a perfect document and can benefit from tweaking and adjusting, and there's always a need to look at. Would you like water?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. So I think there's some challenges in the process with the non-union contract because the negotiating process isn't quite the same as we experience with with a union contract, and we deliberate and have executive sessions. And that doesn't take place for the non-union contract. So. And it impacts a number of employees in the city in a lot of different departments. So I appreciate everyone's hard work, and I think that there's time for that we may also, there's a few other things in here we may need to look at in the upcoming year. Some things that I would like clarification on that I think will be helpful as well. I know there's some questions about vacation and some curiosities with some of the strikeouts and suggested print, but all in all, I think this is a fair document.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and second for adoption of 143.18. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We're now moving on to ordinances for second reading. Several of these will be suspended, as I mentioned, and the other ones that are not suspended tonight will be carried on at our first business meeting in 2019. The first one is Ordinance 151.18, an ordinance amending the 2018 appropriation ordinance, and this is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Does this need suspension? Excuse me. I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules for 151.18.
Second.
As we discussed, these appropriations have to be done, set before the end of the year.
Okay. And these are various transfers to cover personnel and other expenses anticipated before the end of the year. We have a motion and second for suspending the rules on 151.18. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move we adopt 151.18.
Second.
Okay. All right. Any comments or questions about this particular ordinance? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 152.18 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA state project agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for flat sheet sign replacement on U.S. State Routes 33 and 50 and State Route 682 and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by Councilmember Katsas. Ordinance 153.18 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract extension to provide financial support for the operation of the Athens County Economic Development Council and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Fall. Ordinance 154.18 is an ordinance declaring vehicles no longer needed for a municipal purpose, introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. I believe there's a need to suspend this particular ordinance.
Second.
So I'd like to make a motion to suspend.
Okay.
Thank you.
Or second.
My understanding is that there's also some challenges with room and parking and
Storage space.
yeah, storage space with the overabundance of these confiscated vehicles.
Okay. So we have a motion and second to suspend the rules on 154.18. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 154-18.
Second.
Thank you. As you recall, the mayor shared with us that these vehicles were confiscated or vehicles
Or
and
forfeited.
yeah, thank you, forfeited.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the ordinance in front of me.
We've got vehicles dating from 1997, 98, and 2000, and also 2002. And I would like to thank the Law Director's Office. As I understand, there was some help, assistance from your office in moving this forward.
This will be the first batch. There are several more coming, but these were all vehicles in the impound lot. And the first step was that we had to get a court order that ordered the vehicles to be in the name of the city. And then once the city received the title, then the city can dispose of them.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and second for adoption of this. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, go ahead and vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 155.18 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 1508, tuition reimbursement policy for city employees, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Ordinance 156.18 is an ordinance authorizing, affirming the mayor's execution of an agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, known as AFSCME, Local 24032, concerning wages and working conditions. And this is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we suspend the rules for 156.18.
Second.
And since this is an approval of a contract, we need to get this in place before the end of the year.
Okay. So we have a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Eisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt 156.18.
Second.
Okay. And any other comments or questions about this particular ordinance? Okay. Move forward with a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ordinance is, the motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Thank you. Ordinances for first reading. 157.18 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a housing revolving loan fund administration agreement with the state of Ohio Development Services Agency and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't believe this needs to be suspended tonight, does it?
No.
Okay. Allow me to read the pertinent sections. The mayor is hereby authorized to execute a housing revolving loan fund administration agreement with the State of Ohio Development Service Agency for the period beginning January 1, 2019 and ending December 31st, 2021, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference.
Okay. And yes, we have received, and we did receive earlier in the week, thank you, Mayor, the copy of that agreement, so thanks. Okay. Any comments or questions about this one on its first reading? Are we checking something, just to make sure?
Just to note that the Section 2 does say that it's effective January 1, 2019.
But we checked with the state, and they said they would go ahead and let it go through like the 17th of January.
Okay.
But thank you for the question. Yes, rather have that answered now than on January 7th. Okay. Ordinance 15818 is an ordinance authorizing the City of Athens to participate in the U.S. Community's National Government Cooperative Purchasing Program. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. Allow me to read the pertinent sections. Whereas ORC Section 9.48 provides the opportunity for political subdivisions to participate in a joint purchasing program operated by or through a national or state association for the acquisition of equipment, materials, supplies, or services, and whereas through participation in said association, the City of Athens is exempt from any competitive selection procedures otherwise required by law if the contract in which it is participating was awarded pursuant to a publicly solicited request for a proposal or a competitive selection procedure of another political subdivision within the state of Ohio or in another state.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this on its first reading? Yes.
Can I ask a question?
You can if you go up to the podium. Thanks, Judy. And just give us your name and address.
Judith Rahman, 12 Northwood Drive, Athens. I just want to know how you know you're getting the best price. If there's nothing's going out for bid, how does that work?
You know, for some of these, in going through a process like this, it might be, software that we need that has a very specific use. And if it falls under this program, we would have to purchase that software anyway. And this way we could get a better price going through this mechanism, or for equipment or other specialty items. It makes it easier to go through the process. And so it's not always an issue of the best price, because there may only be one vendor for certain things. And if it falls into this program, it's helpful to be able to work through something like this, because it allows us to streamline that process as opposed to having to go out, put out bids and hope that, the same vendor is going to hopefully come in through that bid, as opposed to going through a mechanism like this.
So is it always cheaper? Not necessarily?
And again, sometimes it's not a matter of something being cheaper, especially if it's someone who has a singular, they're the only person who makes something. Okay. Again, software is a good example to use. And so with something like that, we kind of have no choice but to go through that vendor for that software if it's something that we need. And so it's not necessarily a best price mechanism, but it's certainly a streamlined mechanism to be able to get that.
And that's for everything?
No, it wouldn't be. I mean, there's some things that we know that we may be more competitive to go put it out to bid.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, right. And so Councilmember Katsas was just pointing out to me that they're, to join this National Cooperative Purchasing Program, interested in the services provided for lighting, small cell initiatives, and uniform printer copier solutions. So it's pretty specific on this one. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for the question. All right. We'll now move on to a one reading resolution, 1118. And this is a resolution in opposition to a state substitute Senate Bill 250, a bill to modify the offenses of criminal mischief, criminal trespass, aggravated trespass, telecommunications harassment, and making false alarms with respect to critical infrastructure facilities. This is introduced by all members of council, and I believe Councilmember Fall will be speaking to this tonight.
Thank you. I move that we adopt Resolution 1118.
Second.
Thank you. We talked about this, and I read the resolution last week. Many of the things that have that we're concerned about last week, in addition to this particular bill, has gone through the lame duck process and is now sitting on K6's desk. So I think that people need to realize the amount of different types of bills that the lame duck has tried to pass this legislative session, in addition to this really draconian sort of making it very expensive and illegal to have a First Amendment right to be able to protest. So I won't read the whole resolution, but basically the title says it all. It's draconian, it's ill-advised, and it has very loosey-goosey sort of definitions about who would be responsible and who could be prosecuted under this bill, which includes the city. So it's our due diligence to be able to say to Kasich that we want them to veto it. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion and second for approval of Resolution 1118. Are there any additional comments or questions from council members, administration, or the audience? Okay. We'll have the vote. Then all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion carries and the resolution has been approved. And as part of that, we will be sending copies of that, obviously, to the representatives and Governor Kasich, as well as our federal representatives and federal and state representatives. Mayor Patterson.
I'm just, in looking over this, and I know you've already voted on it, but it's curious that our state senator is not listed on this as someone to receive it, or is he?
He is not, and he's a sponsor of the bill.
Correct.
Right. Good catch. Thank you.
We can add that as a typo, as a typographical error. Thank you for catching the oversight.
Thank you.
Yep, very important. Okay. We now have a moment for announcements and other business, the first being a motion to accept the auditor's November 2018 financial records, which
Second.
All right, motion and second to accept the auditor's report. All those in favor, reports, excuse me. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And then we have a motion, or I will ask for a motion to approve some reappointments and appointments to various commissions. And there are 3 of them, so I'll just go through them briefly. For the Athens Municipal Arts Commission, we have reappointments for 2-year terms. The persons being Chelsea Morahan, who was our previous director over at the Arts West, to Josh Birnbaum, who is involved with the Athens Photographic Project, Carol Patterson, our current chair for the Municipal Arts Commission and former council member and a longtime involved person with that, and Liz Braun, who is the current vice chair and acting secretary and is also employed at the Fine Arts Department at OU. And then for an appointment to the Recreation Advisory Board, a 2-year term for Nick Palmer, who is affiliated with WATH-WXTQ. And then finally, a reappointment for the Board of Zoning Appeals to a 3-year term, and this is for Ed Baum, who is a former council member and retired OU professor. So if I could have a motion and second for approval of these.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And we'd like to thank them in advance for their continuing work on our various commissions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, these appointments and reappointments have been approved. We now have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on the agenda. Yes, if you'd like to come forward and just give us your name and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Parker Smith. I live at 85 West State Street, Apartment B. I'm also speaking in my capacity as the Off-Campus Life Commissioner for the Ohio University Student Senate. And I just wanted to speak a little bit, sharing my own experience of living in Athens, off campus over these past 6 months. On the whole, I've deeply enjoyed all the time I've lived in Athens, and I do feel that the community and its representatives are largely responsive to student concerns. However, in the 6 months that I personally have lived off campus, I and my roommates have faced a series of personal challenges that concern me both by nature of being someone that lives in the city and due to the fact that it has posed a difficulty to me in trying to represent the issues and concerns of other students. And I also feel like no one ever kind of gets up here and just complains about issues I have. So I guess I'm kind of doing that as well. My roommates and I have dealt with 3 significant crimes perpetrated against us just over the course of living at the address since June. We've had our cars rummaged through, probably multiple times. They took everything the first time. Over Halloween, we had an individual break in, throw up on our couch, assault our roommates, and most recently, Our house was robbed for over $1,000 worth of items just 2 days before finals week started. While the police have been helpful in all these matters, I do feel like I would guess they would act with greater sense of urgency or seriousness if we were not students. I'd be happy to give the case numbers for any of these or discuss specifics later if anyone's interested. Beyond safety issues, we have also faced our share of our own landlord and housing problems, with initial maintenance requests being fulfilled in May or June when we moved in. Some of them still have not been carried out. Others, someone just showed up and said, 6 months, better late than never, right? I only lived there for less than 12 months. How am I supposed to care about the property? Landlords also never cleaned up just trash that was on the property when we first moved in. We recently had a window fall out of our house, out of its frame. Maintenance person articulated that it had never been fully installed. He didn't bother to look at any of the other windows. Our internet was downgraded partway into the lease. Landlords promised that they'll get us that extra money back in the security deposits. I would also express general concern over the state of sidewalks and lighting within the city, but specifically where I live also, on West State Street. One of my roommates just fell on, I don't know if anyone has walked on that sidewalk, but it has like weird steps that probably aren't really even supposed to be steps. You know, it should be kind of smooth. It's in really bad shape generally. One of my roommates just fell down and got 17 stitches down the front of his face last week. A fall that could have, hospitalized him. It surely would have hospitalized someone older. And I understand that a lot of these problems associated with things like crime or poverty are not necessarily one readily addressed at this level of government or by you all here tonight. But I do feel like just someone should be complaining about these sorts of things. And in my time coming to council meetings, I have rarely seen that. I also want to share outside of it being a student issue and my own personal issues, it's the whole community. Right, there was a shooting 2 weeks ago, 2 blocks west of my house. There have been 2 drunk driver crashes on West State Street and West Washington within the past week. My friends on High Street, the vice president of Student Senate, had their cars rummaged through in between the time of the shooting 2 weeks ago and my house getting robbed last week. And that's concerning. It's concerning not just for my own personal reasons. It's also concerning to me because, my own experiences in the area around me suggest that some or most of the other 10,000 plus students that live off campus face similar problems. And to some extent, there's no one aside from me and a couple other individuals I work with explicitly come devoted to addressing those. And I can't address my own problems to some extent. And it also makes it an issue for the city and the region, and not solely because citizens are struggling with safety or housing issues, but it's also an economic issue because people such as myself, all those experiences factor into deciding whether or not I want to stay in Athens longer, right, for grad school or to try to work here, or, for some people to potentially move and settle down here. I get that those are long-term issues, and I don't really have anything tangible to contribute on how to deal with them.
Well, we thank you for your organized presentation of what's obviously been a concern to you for your safety of yourself and your colleagues. And though some of these are administrative items, it's certainly an appropriate place to come because the health and safety of every person in this community is our job too, to make sure that happens. So I think some follow-up with the mayor and the police chief and immediately also with the code office with some specific addresses. We don't normally get engaged in a discussion here. It's time for a comment, but we aren't meaning to be unsympathetic and unconcerned. We are very much concerned about this, so thank you.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate willingness to just hear my situation.
And thank you. Entirely appropriate, and we encourage that. So thank you for being here tonight. And you've been attending regularly too. So yes, thanks so much. Okay.
That's how they know he's not.
All right. We do hope for everyone to have a happy, safe holiday time, and as we are on break, and to take extra care, just as we've noted, that cars are gone through, and make sure your cars are locked and lights are on, and to also let the police know, you do have a vacation check option with our local police department. Anytime that you're going to be away, you can fill out a form with them, and it's a wonderful service where they will come and patrol. So those are all some measures that will help. But we will be, I'm sure, the administration will be working on some of the other issues that were mentioned earlier. So, yes, Mayor Patterson.
Just to reiterate to everyone that, I basically, as the mayor, operate with an open door policy. So if someone has an issue, and Parker, I would encourage you to come and meet with me, because I can certainly give you some updates of some of the things that are going to be happening in your neighborhood as we're moving forward. And I, again, encourage everyone, as President Nisley was just alluding to, it's unfortunate, and this isn't a singular issue or an issue that is isolated to the city of Athens. I think this is nationwide, we see this, but oftentimes there's other people who would like to have your holiday gifts more than you may. And so just be very smart and conscious, and make sure that your vehicles are locked up, that your houses are locked up. It's always a good idea to have a neighbor nearby to look over your place while you're out. But as President Nisley was saying, the police department can also go by and do basically well checks on your house or anything else. But I too appreciate your approaching council, and just one more time say that, from my office, I always adhere to the open door policy. So I'd love to speak with you at more detail.
So we will adjourn if we have a motion and second.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, we are adjourned at 7:38 p.m.
Ho, ho.
And we'll see you next year in 2000.